Once Upon a Time Stories from Leicester Library's Neighbourhood Services. I'm Sandy and I want to tell you the story of tops and bottoms. Once upon a time, there was a lazy bear, and he lived in a big old house with a porch and lots of land. And what he liked to do was lie on that porch and sleep all day. Next door lived the rabbit family. And the rabbits were always running and doing and running and doing and busy and working. But, well, Mr. Rabbit, he hadn't been so clever. They used to have a lot of land, just like Bear. But poor Rabbit, he'd lost a bet with a tricky tortoise and he'd had to sell his land to Mr. Bear, so now they had nothing. And one day Mrs. Rabbit said, "Rabbit, we're going to have to do something. The children are hungry. We've no money and nothing to eat. The cupboards are bare." So Rabbit, he thought and he scratched behind his ears and he came up with a plan. And down the road he hopped to Bear's house, where Mr. Bear was fast asleep on the porch. "Wake up, Bear," said Rabbit, and he had to say it again. "Maybe you can help him too." "Wake up, Bear," shouted Rabbit, and Bear, "What?" he said. "Bear," said Rabbit, "I've had the most amazing idea. Why don't we become business partners? We're neighbours already. I'll do all the work. I can dig that land of yours and I've got some seed here to plant, and in no time we'll have a lovely crop of delicious vegetables and we'll split it, half for you and half for me. What do you say, Bear? It's a done deal?" "Well, okay," said Bear. "You dig, you sow, I'll sleep." "Fine," said Rabbit. "That's fine. Now what would you like? Would you like the top of the crops or the bottom?" "Oh, tops," said Bear, and fell fast asleep again. So Rabbit set to work, and Mrs. Rabbit and the children came down the lane as well, and they dug and they planted their seeds and they watered them, and the rain came down and the sun, it rose and it fell day after day, and the crop, the vegetables, began to grow. And when they were ready, "It's harvest time! Wake up, Bear!" shouted the rabbit family. And Bear stretched and he sat up on the porch, and he could see Mr. Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit and all the rabbit children busy pulling up that crop of vegetables and splitting them into the tops and the bottoms. And there were the bottoms of the vegetable crop. There was radishes and orange carrots and purple beetroots, all going into the rabbit family basket. And here were the tops, Bear's half, and it was, well, leaves, bitter tasting, floppy green leaves. "I can't eat that," said Bear, and he was a bit cross. "You tricked me, Rabbit. Right, we can do this again. This time we're business partners, right? Half each. I'll have the bottoms and you have the tops." "All right," said Rabbit, and he shook hands with Bear. "It's a done deal, Bear. You go back to sleep." So Bear, that told him, he went back to sleep, and the rabbit family set to work, and they dug and they sowed those seeds and they planted some vegetables, and the rain came down and the sun, it rose and fell and rose and fell, and the crops, the vegetables began to grow. And when they were ready, "Harvest time! Wake up, Bear!" all the rabbits shouted and poked him a bit to wake him up. And Bear, all right, it's bottoms for me, you rabbit family, you. No tricking this time. That's right, Bear, said Mr. Rabbit, and off they all went, and they pulled out the crop of vegetables. So, bottoms for Bear. What did he have? Well, let's see. Here in the rabbit's basket they had nice crispy leaf lettuce tops and crunchy tall celery tops, all into their basket. And Bear, what did he have? Nothing but the straggly roots, all there on the front porch step. You tricked me again, Rabbit, said Bear. This is no good. Right, this time I'm having the tops and the bottoms, whether you like it or not. And he built himself up to his full bear height, which was a lot bigger than a rabbit, and he looked quite mean. And Mrs. Rabbit said, "Okay, Bear, don't worry, you can have the tops and the bottoms. We'll do all the work. You just go back to sleep." And Bear, he grumbled in a growly way, and he settled down, and he did go back to sleep. And Bear slept, and he slept. And while he slept, the rabbit family, they worked. They planted the seeds, and they watered and weeded, and the rain came down, and the sun, it rose and fell, and eventually the vegetable crop, was ready. And the rabbit family gathered in front of Bear's porch, and they all shouted as loud as they could, "Wake up, Bear!" And Bear, I'm hungry, said Bear. "What have I got this time? Tops and bottoms, Rabbit. It's a done deal, you remember?" "Oh, yes, Bear," said Rabbit. And there it was, the crop. Here were the roots from the bottom on Bear's pile, and here were the tassels, the flowery tassels from the top on Bear's pile, and from the middle, do you know what it was? Sweet corn, cobs of sweet corn, lovely, juicy, yellow sweet corn cobs, all went in the rabbit family basket. "You tricked me again!" shouted Bear, and he was proper Big Bear, angry this time, and he got down off the porch, and, well, he chased the rabbit family off down the road, but they'd got the sweet corn with them. And Bear, well, that was the end of his business partnership with Rabbit, and he started to dig his own land and plant his own crops. But Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit sold some of the vegetables they'd gathered, and with the money they bought back a patch of land, so now they could grow their own crop and run a little market stall selling vegetables, and they lived very happily ever after. And that's the story of Tops and Bottoms and Rabbit and Lazy Mr. Bear. And if you liked it, go and share it with someone else. Bye.